It used to be that calling a film a turkey was an insult. Nowadays, there's actually an audience for some of the worst movies ever made.
Baby, you are gonna go broke showing turkeys like these.
Now we're talking turkey.
Gobble, gobble, motherfucker.
It's turkey time. Gobble, gobble.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Let's Talk Turkeys. I'm Movie Miss, and I'm solo today. I'm doing this episode as a companion piece to our recent release of I Am Legend, starring Will Smith, because I feel like in that podcast, Nikki Flicks and our special guest, Jay, and I kept referring to the novel and the source material, saying that we thought this or that could have been better, this or that probably takes from the source material, this or that probably twisted from the source material. Like, we had so many opinions and kept referring to what is the source material, what effect did it probably have on the motion picture, what was lost in translation, what was translated correctly, so on and so forth. So after we recorded that episode, out of curiosity, I went ahead and read the novel I Am Legend, which was written in 1954 by Richard Matheson. It was interesting because the book is a small novel, and after I read the book, I had to Google to see what the issue was, and I'll explain. It turns out Richard Matheson enjoyed writing horror pieces and short stories, small stories about characters that lasted anywhere from 5 to 15 pages. So what they did was, without telling anybody, they put together I Am Legend. The first half of the book, like about 160 pages or so, is the story I Am Legend. And then it abruptly ends. And the second half of this paperback novel that I have is a compilation of these short stories that he's written about other characters. So here's the weird thing. I read I Am Legend, and then, like I said, it abruptly ends. And then you start these new stories. And in my mind, I'm thinking, because I Am Legend was filled with a lot of flashback, is this a compilation of short stories of these people's lives who turned into vampires or were affected by the plague somehow? So in my mind, I thought that these were all related somehow to I Am Legend. I was thoroughly confused. Doing the Googling, come to find out, he loved to write short stories. They didn't have enough material to fill a full novelization. So they combined I Am Legend, fleshed it out with a whole bunch of his short stories at the end. So there you have it. The book, let's touch on that first. So in the book, the character Robert Neville is the appeared to be sole survivor of this plague that has killed most of the human population. And in the book, it has turned the remaining people into vampires. It's a stereotypical portrayal of them. Blood-sucking, pale-skinned, come out at night, don't like garlic, mirrors, crosses, etc. Standard vampire fare, right? And you have to remember, in 1954, there wasn't a lot to draw on. I mean, Nosferatu, Dracula. So he was just basically taking from that information. He wasn't creating anything new in the way of lore for vampires. But in the book, it's vampires. And it's weird because he's not any kind of super smart, how we were hypothesizing Will Smith's, career in I Am Legend and how smart he is. This guy isn't any of that.
He gets some books and he does a lot of reading and self-educating. He is your standard run-of-the-mill guy who decides to teach himself about bacterias and how it all works and how he can try to find a cure. He's basically just trying to figure this all out from books by himself. And he winds up figuring out
it's some kind of bacillus strain of bacteria, and it infects living hosts as well as deceased hosts. So we don't know where it came from, why it started, how it started, but we do learn that it's some kind of bacterial infection and people are vampires. It affected his wife, and he didn't want to burn the body per the government instructions of having to do that back when the plague first started. He buries her. She ends up coming back. He's got a neighbor friend and the vampires who constantly harass his house at night, and it's hard for him, so he gets depressed. He turns to drinking. At one point during the novel, he comes across a stray injured dog that is too afraid to come near him. And he spends, God bless him, I'm not really going to criticize his writing talent, but Richard Matheson, way too many pages describing this poor dog and him trying to coax him closer and closer to the house with milk and food so he can take a look at him and take care of him and make a companion of him. And it's all for naught because The dog winds up dying. He doesn't even get to keep the dog in any way. He comes across this lady named Ruth, and he doesn't know if she's a vampire type person, like somehow able to be out and is like trying to trick him, or if she's human. He basically tries to take her in and use her blood to find a cure. It's just hard because after watching I Am Legend, and we hypothesized all these things about how the butterfly signifying metamorphosis, these people aren't sick, they're just human evolution. None of that is present in this book. And I feel like if I Am Legend had strayed even further from the source material, they would have had a completely new idea, and that movie would have been wildly more successful, portraying everything they wanted to do. Because Nikki Flicks was pointing out to me, I hadn't really paid attention to that. They're not creatures or monsters. They're actually human evolution, and they just want to be left alone. It's, it's a metamorphosis they've gone through, and we can learn to live, side by side with them or what have you. If I Am Legend had just embraced that fully, because they made all that up, none of that is in the book. They should have just made it better, gone with it further, done more with it. They tried to stay close to the source material, but yet have their own little twist on it. And to me, if you listened to our episode, it didn't work for me. I hated it. So back to the book. This woman, Ruth, basically tells him they're going to kill you. The vampires want to kill all the rogue extreme vampires, and the vampires want to kill the humans. They're going to come for you. So at the end of the novel, what it comes down to is Ruth can't bring herself to turn him over to the vampires or kill him. So she leaves him a letter that basically explains what's happening and that you're going to get killed anyway. So she leaves him a pill, like poison. And Robert, instead of running off and hiding, he just takes the pill and he kills himself. So Robert Neville dies. The end. It's such an abrupt ending, and you're like, well, that can't be it. That can't be the whole story. A man, and he had a wife, and the plague hits, and it's vampires, and he's fighting the vampires and trying to stay alive. Dog comes, dog dies. Ruth comes, Robert dies. Like, the book is very simple. It's vampires. It's a bacterial infection. It's nothing like the movie I Am Legend. So again, after reading the book now, I'm even more furious at the people who made I Am Legend. Because like I said already, if you're going to stray that far from the source material and make shit up, have these weird evolutionized humans that have sort of vampiristic qualities, not all, just a little, you're going to have this whole thing with trying to find this civilization of people that survived, finding the cure, this whole big thing. They should have just embraced that and gone in 110%, because walking that line between the kind of cool stuff they were making up and trying to do the source material, they completely screwed the pooch. They completely lost me. Makes me hate it even more now, to be honest with you, after reading the book. To continue further, though, I wanted to discuss the 3 other iterations. The first version with Vincent Price, called The Last Man on Earth, and it is a direct adaptation of the book I Am Legend. He is the lone man. He's fighting vampires. They come for him. He's trying to understand what's happening. He's having a hard time with it. He's drinking. He's basically like the Robert Neville character in the book. Ruth shows up, betrays him at the end. He winds up getting stabbed and he dies. And that's the end of the movie. We see these vampiristic people who are killing the humans and killing some of the vampires. They end up killing him. The end. So Ruth and the others survive. Vincent Price is amazing. He always gives 1,000%, if that's even possible. My husband seems to think that nobody should be able to give more than 100% because that doesn't make sense mathematically. But if you ask me, Vincent Price gives 1,000%, as he does in everything. The movie is dated, obviously, because it was made in the 60s, but it doesn't matter because he's such a joy and such a gift to cinema in general, but also the horror genre more specifically. It's a wonderful, silly, vampires, black and white movie. You can't take it seriously. It obviously is taken directly from the source material for the most part. You just gotta love it. End of story, no comparing it to anything else. Then we move on to the 70s version, starring Charlton Heston, called The Omega Man. It is early, some would argue prime, Charlton Heston. I personally am not a fan of his acting style. I don't care for him. I don't care for his movies. I felt beyond that feeling of him, he completely overacts and overreacts in this film to everything and everyone. He's over the top when it doesn't call for him to be over the top. The movie has the vampires. The movie has a clan of people called the Family, I think, and they end up turning on him in the end, and he ends up dying as well. But the movie is that weird time in the 70s where it almost feels technicolor-y. The action, they try to use the stunt doubles, and you can tell that they're stunt doubles. It's obvious. Like, the script is not that good, to be honest with you. Then you've got Charlton Heston's overacting. The whole thing is just extremely painful to watch. You can see when you watch it, however, it is from the source material, the book I Am Legend. Because again, it tries to follow that rough path of the vampires, and he's alone and he's fighting them. It does go in the weird direction of having this group of people, the family, taking him under their wing, basically. The Ruth character befriending him. It doesn't matter though, because if you compare, honestly, Last Man on Earth to the Omega Man, they're both basically like the source material. Last Man on Earth is far superior, and that is about 85% because it stars Vincent Price. To be honest with you, he elevates the material. You almost feel sometimes in the moments where he's quietly going throughout his day, Vincent Price's character, and there's voiceover narration, and you watch him and his expressions and how he's acting through everything so convincingly. You feel like you're watching a play, like a stage play or something. Like, he's so classical in his delivery. Charlton Heston, complete opposite. It's just not on the same level. It's just not. Just because we were 10 plus years advanced technology wise at the time that the Omega Man was made versus Last Man on Earth, and it's color and not black and white, like, so what? A better movie is just a better movie. You know what I mean? 12 Angry Men is black and white. To Kill a Mockingbird is black and white. Like, these movies are just, a good movie is just a good movie, period. I feel like all the pieces were there in the Vincent Price iteration, not in the Heston version. So then in 2007, as we discussed on the I Am Legend episode, there was a made-for-TV version or direct-to-video version called I Am Omega, starring Mark Dacascos, same source material. However, yes, it is like a TV movie or direct-to-video movie. So the big budget studio production quality isn't there. It makes the movie better. The movie's better for it because, as we discussed in the I Am Legend episode, I Am Legend's CGI is terrible. I don't know why they weren't able to have better CGI, even though Nikki Flicks and Jay liked the movie. They agreed with me. The CGI does not hold up. The CGI was not the best. In I Am Omega, made at the same time, they went a different direction from the source material, but they did it better.
They went with practical effects instead of CGI, and it works because it lends to that B-movie style, which is what you're getting, and they just went all in, and it totally works. I'm here for practical zombies. It's awesome.
Now, I'm not going to argue that Mark Dacascos is not as big an actor as Will Smith, because it's true, he has not hit A-list and Will Smith has. I feel like that is an oversight by Hollywood. Mark Dacascos does not get his due. He's amazing. I mean, yes, he did, Double Dragon and Only the Strong, and, everybody has to pay their dues in Hollywood coming up, but if you've seen Brotherhood of the Wolf, if you've seen I Am Omega, if you've seen, the things he's done in the last 20 years, he has come into his own. He is an amazing presence on screen. He can act. He can. I'm here to tell you. I think the most recent thing people would know him from is John Wick 3, which I haven't seen yet, but I hear he's in that, so I'm excited to watch it. But my point is, okay, so Mark Dacascos has to carry this movie, I Am Omega. The creatures in this movie are more zombie-like than vampires, so they stray from the source material there. He's not a rocket scientist or what have you. He's a former military, actually. He's got his house wired. He's got his system down to how he lives his daily life to stay safe. He's physically fit. He's convincing with his gun. He totally seems like he would be thriving and surviving in this situation. So that's believable right off the bat. You get the flashbacks that he lost his wife and child. That also is from the source material. He just is trying to survive. He's not trying to find a cure with his blood. He's just making his way through this crisis situation. He's wired the city to blow because we're not sure if it's a worldwide plague that's happened or if it's just local. He wants to just get out of the city and find this place where supposed survivors are. It's a simple plot. They took the source material and they just kind of said, hey, what if we did kind of zombies instead of vampires? Which honestly, I like better than metamorphosized, evolutionized humans, more than vampires. I like the whole kind of a zombie plague idea. But that's my personal take. That's my personal opinion. But in any event, so here's the guy who lost his wife and child, has mad survival skills, has his place wired, has the city wired, is making his plan of, what he's going to do. And then he gets a mysterious video call from a woman who is in the middle of the city who happened to survive. So he goes in to rescue her, gets hijacked by two yokels who say that one of them is actually the screenwriter of the movie. I found out by Googling, playing one of these characters. But these two guys basically hijack him and say, hey, we're from this place, Antioch, I think they call it, where the survivors are who aren't infected. Turns out they're really not. So they bust him up good and they take the girl after she's rescued and they're going to rape and kill her, but Mark Dacascos saves her and they go off into the sunset. He blows the city and they ride off to find this Antioch colony. And they even have a little smooch at the end at sunset, which is super cute. So they basically didn't try to make what I Am Legend made. They didn't try to make the source material exactly. They just made a little spin on it. And all it is a basic telling of a survival through a apocalyptic type situation, plague situation, with a lot of action, a lot of suspense, and the fun little twist at the end where he gets the girl and they ride off in the sunset. I felt like for the kind of movie that these movies present themselves to be in this series, this did it the best. It delivered on being a mindless, cheesy, fun, action, suspense with the zombies, with the guns, with the we gotta get on the mission and find the girl and we gotta get the hell out of Dodge. Perfect telling of if you're gonna twist the tail. Last Man on Earth, best adaptation between that and Omega Man of the book. If you're gonna do a direct from the book adaptation. I Am Legend with Will Smith, just no. Just completely no. So, in my opinion, bad marketing on the book, because I was confused and didn't understand what I was reading. But when I finally did realize that the second half of the book wasn't related to the first half of the book, I processed it and accepted it for what it was. Then Last Man on Earth, amazing. I watch it. I can watch it every year. I'm not bored. Vincent Price, great telling if you want something from the source material. Yes, it was made in 1964, so it's going to be a little bit quote unquote boring, maybe for the younger generation, people who didn't grow up watching those sorts of movies. They can be a little boring. But if you want to learn cinema, if you want to learn great performances, if you want to learn classic horror, Vincent Price movie, this is one to watch. 100%, I'm going to recommend it. The Omega Man, no. Skip it unless you need a good laugh. If you really want some Charlton Heston fun, watch Soylent Green instead. Watch Planet of the Apes instead. Do not bother with the Omega Man. It is a dumpster fire. It is hot garbage. It's laughable. I laughed at it. I was not scared, intrigued, didn't enjoy it. Just skip it. That's my advice. I Am Legend with Will Smith. If you listen to the episode, you know my thoughts and feelings. If you didn't listen to that episode, after you finish with this, go listen to it because it is an interesting episode. I will tell you, there are some good things that we discuss, and there are some good things about the movie. I feel like they should not have had the dog. The dog should not have been in peril. And spoiler alert, if you've not seen I Am Legend with Will Smith, the dog dies. I don't think any of that was necessary. I feel like they dropped the ball with the creatures. They dropped the ball with the virus. They didn't amp up the horror. They tried to make it more of a human drama. It fell flat. Again, after reading the source material, they strayed too far, but they didn't put enough original in it. So skip that one too. It's trash. If you're in the mood for a fun take on this type of end of the world story, just watch I Am Omega. I Am Omega is currently available on Tubi for free and other streaming platforms. Look it up. If you're not a Mark Dacascos fan, you soon will be. You should also watch him in Brotherhood of the Wolf. I'm hoping that we'll do an upcoming episode on that because it's I want to say French film that was made based on a true story about a wolf/werewolf creature that was terrorizing the countryside. It's a fun, crazy fantasy take on that. And Mark Dacascos is amazing in that movie. You get to see his full-on physical ability of what he can do as a martial artist and stunt person in his own right. He did one stunt where he almost got hurt because something malfunctioned, but he pulls it off and it's in the movie and it's amazing. He's just great. He really is. If you're looking for a version of this movie, I say first, go to Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price, also available on streaming. It's a direct telling of the novel. I don't think you can go wrong with just a fun Vincent Price movie. I Am Omega kicks it up a notch. So much fun. I Am Legend dropped the ball from the source material, but didn't go far enough. Omega Man, hot trash, skip it all together. So there's my hot take on all of it. There's my suggestions on all of it. There's my opinion on all of it. If you want to read the book, just take what I'm telling you that you're going to be let down because he's not the best writer. Richard Matheson, God bless him, he tried. He wanted to tell a fun story. I think it's a little bit dated now. The threat of, atomic war, nuclear war, all that in the 50s, and the whole bacterial infection thing, making a vampire. Like, it's all silly and not very interesting the way he writes it. There are long stretches of, him being drunk and forgetting what day it is, and a week goes by and, scavenging for food. And there's not even though I hated that there was the dog in I Am Legend because the dog ends up dying, there's not even that in the book. He finds one, he tries to coax it over because it's injured and stray, and it doesn't end up staying. And there's nothing in the book that's really that worth a read, worth your time, to be honest. Just watch Last Man on Earth and you get a better version of the book because they cut out the parts that don't really matter from the book and the parts that are kind of silly. They just took the core parts that made the story what it was. So that is my opinion and my take on the book and all the other material for I Am Legend. So hopefully, if you're a fan of anything that I've talked about, you're going to be wanting to go revisit. If your interest has been piqued by me talking about all this, now you're going to go check out some of this stuff for yourself and have your own opinion, which I highly recommend. My opinion is just my opinion, obviously. I'm not trying to force it on anybody, but I'm trying to give you as much information as I can so that you'll want to seek stuff out on your own and do your own comparisons. Because really, at the end of the day, this show is about us talking about the things we love or don't love about these turkey movies. And even though I Am Legend was a big old turkey, in my opinion, people loved it. I just kind of wanted to put it out there, tying it to the book and to the other versions to talk about what was right, what was wrong, what compared to the book, what didn't, because we had touched on it so much during that episode of I Am Legend. So hopefully this has been informative for you in some way. I want to thank you for listening. And until next time, bye. Hey listeners, Movie Miss here. Listen, I know you have a lot of options when it comes to podcasts, so thank you for listening to the show. I know everybody says this, but for a fledgling little show like ours that's just hanging on, we just finished season 4, we're rolling into season 5, it would really help us if you could subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Good Pods. We're also on Pandora, Audible, Amazon Music. It would really help us grow the show and reach more people if you could subscribe and then rate and review, which is really the key part of it. Make sure to be part of our bad movie conversation by following us on social media. Interact with me on social media. I'm on Instagram at Movie Miss, which is movie_miss. The show is on Instagram at Let's Talk Turkeys. Also on Blue Sky at Let's Talk Turkeys and Facebook. We're on X. I'm honestly not sure how much longer I'm going to have the show on there, but currently the handle is at Gobble Podcast. Get it? Gobble, 'cause like a turkey. You can also chat with like-minded bad movie lovers in our Facebook discussion group. And like I mentioned, we're rolling into season 5. It is 2025. The show, it's been a wild ride, still going strong. So if you have a movie that you would like to hear covered on the show, let me know by emailing direct at letstalkturkeys, all one word, at yahoo.com. Also, hit me up on socials if you want to be a guest on the show. Always looking for guests. I can assign you a movie, something we think is fun, or you can bring a movie that you think is a bad movie if it has a low Rotten Tomatoes score, or you just really don't like the movie but you like to talk about it. That's half the fun, I think. Again, this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it. Without you, the show wouldn't still be kicking around. So thank you so much for hanging in there with us.
I'll be back.
Get the fuck out of here! No, I cannot. Get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here! Why don't you get the fuck out of here? Get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.